Hello and welcome to the React lecture series. So in this lecture, we'll do the coding demo for lecture 8, which is the how to create React routers, how to create paths, and how to create navigation bars. And then we'll create two React components in response to those routes. Okay, so let's go and clone our template repository, which is in here. In each video, I shared the React template, so you can go there and directly can clone this repository. Okay, so let's go and so I'll clone here. So write git clone the address, and then I will write what will be the repository name. So write React router. Okay. And then React router is there. So let's go inside cd React router, router, and then so if you expand this, so we have some dependencies here. So we also need one more dependencies, which is React router DOM. Okay, so let's install uh, these whatever the dependencies we have here. So you write npm install, and then we need one more dependencies, which is npm react router. Okay, npm install. Okay, npm install react router DOM at 6. Okay, so that's the version 6 we are going to install, react router DOM version 6. Okay, so router DOM is installed. uh, Now we can start it. We write npm start. Okay, so now welcome to React. I don't know why sometimes it just takes some time, but okay, so we are set. So let's get started with creating the routes. Okay, so let me open my source file. In here we have app.js. Okay, so let's create a component. The component will be Navbar, uh, but we also need to import some React components. So write import um, browser router uh, brow. Okay, so the routes, import routes from React router DOM. Okay, so we'll say this is the implicit. We write this, and then we route. Okay, and then browser router, and then the other one is the link. Okay, so these are the things we need to create the routes. So we'll say that welcome to route, so it will be there by default. So we are going to create browser router. Okay, inside the browser router, we'll call our navbar component. Okay, so navigation bar, so we need to create that. Okay, so we did not create yet, so let's create just a function of it, and then we can define later nav bar, and so that is the navbar component, and then it will return this. Okay, now we'll define it later. Let's go and first create the routes component. Okay, so it's the routes. Okay, so inside routes we'll create route. uh, so route is self closing tag. Okay, so now we need to write path, right? We need to write path is where we're going to. So this one, let's say that we write, so this is user defined name, what the path you want to create, so students, right? And then we will, so what is the elements you're going to call for this one, okay? So the element will be, um, okay, so this will be React component, the students component, okay? So we also need to import that component, okay? And then the other component that we want to create is the students ID component. Sorry, this is the students details component, but the path will be ID. Okay, so this is the path and this is the student details. Um, okay, so we need to have a self closing tag for this component. Okay, so now we need to import this, right? So we need to import the students component and student details component because we are going to create two into separate file. So we will import, but then we also need to create the components itself. So let's go and create the component first. So in the source, we create a repository here as the components. Okay. So inside the components, we create our first file is students.js. Okay, and the other file will be studentDetails.js. Okay, so let me see that what we have written here. Students detail. We can write student detail because it's basically one student details that will show based on the ID. Okay, so now so we need to define the function here. So we write function. And then, okay, so we need to import something. Let's give a space here, function students, and then it will return something. Uh, okay, so we'll define the return later, and then we just write export default export default students. Okay, and then we can import it. Export default students. Okay. Same thing, almost same thing. We'll write student details. So let's just write this word. The component name will be student details, and we will export student details. Okay. So these are the two components, and now let's import them. So write import students from component students, and then the other one is that import students details from component student details. Okay, so now these are the two components we have linked up, and then let's finish the navigation bar. So navigation bar, we're going to just link to this one. So we write uh, say a navbar. We want to create a navigation nav, and then inside the nav we want to link to that. So we write, so we have the link, right? So we write to link to where. Okay, so we want to write where it should link to. So link to should be the students, right? So just write like this, students. Okay, so this route, and then we say that this one should display as students. Okay, so let's see that whether we can see. So yeah, we have the navigation link. So that's, you see that when you click that, it will basically click that route. Okay, so that route is will call the students component, and which basically doing nothing. So we need to define that. So let's go and define the students component. But before that, we basically want to show some student summary information, right? So we need some students since we don't have the database right now. So we are just um, use some static student, which I will also post in the GitHub repository. So it's already in there. So this I'll keep the link to the video description. So I'll just generate some random students. So I'll just use them as my source of students. So I will inside the source I'll create a um, repository name source. Okay, so we can our sources. Okay, and then inside the sources we create say student db .js, student database .js. Okay, and then here we just this one we create all the students and then we just export default as student db. Okay, student db. We'll just export them as like this. Okay, so this is my random 10 students. I mean, you can use your own database. I mean, when we will have our database connected, so then we can directly fetch from the database. But right now it's just a static file to just get familiar with um, the routes creation. So now we will import that one. So write import. Okay, import student db. Okay, from source and student db. Okay, so the source is here, and then we got our student. So now we will map this one since this is a list, right? So list of objects. So these are each are objects. So we can render the array or list using the map method, right? So let's go and write that. So we'll say we will write student db dot map. Okay, so that's our map function, and how you want to display it, right? Let's say that we can display in a p tag. So right, okay, so it will basically give a student object. So that's the callback function, and then we want to display all the students. So we can write. So that's we want to return. So and then we'll say that we will return inside a p tag, and then okay, so write a p tag here, and inside the p tag we want to return. So if you see the student db, each student has ID, name, GP, and department. Let's say that I just want to return ID and the name initially. So we'll write in here as, oh, okay. So we need to write the expression student dot ID, and then let's say that if you want to give a colon here, and then another one is student dot name, right? Okay, so and then we also need what? Okay, so there is it's like this, and then we write a key equal to say student ID. Since unique, I can use this one as a key. Okay, so now you see that it should iterate through the list, and then it shows the student ID and the student name. Okay, let's see whether it is iterating through. Okay, student db is not defined. Okay, it's not student db is not student db from sources student. Okay, so how export default. uh, okay, so we need to export as students. Okay, and but in here we want to import, as since this is export, I think we can write student.db. Okay, so students here, see, and now it shows. So the one interesting thing that while we are exporting, right, so we are exporting here, so we can write this on. Okay, so this is how we are exporting. Okay, but when we are importing, since this is the default export, we can import whatever way we can give the name of it. Okay, but if it is an implicit export, and then we need to write whatever, so like you need to write like this, and then if you want to give it new name, then you need to write as and the new name. Okay, so but it is a default export, then we can just change the name the way that we want to. So now, okay, so it shows, right, it shows the student ID and the name of the student. Now the one thing I wanted to do is that we want to give a link to here so that we can go to the next route, which is to show the detailed information of the student. So for that, we can give a link to the student name, right? So, okay. So for this, we will create a link here. So, okay, so we import the link, right? So we write import link, uh, uh, import link from React router DOM. Okay, so and then we can use the link here, and then we write link, and then link to where. Okay, so and then this one will be what you want to display, and then give a link to. So um, and then we need to give the address to link. Okay, so link to where. Okay, so this one will link to the say student ID, right? So you write student dot ID dot uh, to string. Okay, so that will be a string link. So that will be student.id. So whatever the student.id, we will convert to a string. So since we are already in this page, so this is the students route page, and then on top of it, we are giving a link to the ID. So if you see that we got a link, and then if I click here, you see it shows that in here in the bottom, you can see at the bottom that it shows that, okay, it's actually pointing to the ID 792, this one is 684. So it will go into that okay, the route. So it is students and then the ID of it, right? So we need to define that one, right? So it's basically, if you see the app.js, so app.js, we have students, and then this is the ID, right? So now what you need to do, we need to define this component. Okay, so this component should extract this information and find that specific student and just display its information. Okay, so this one we want to do in the students details component. Okay, so we need to do it. And now since we need to get the student ID, so we'll use a hook called um, use params, use params, import, okay, import use param into import search param. Okay, what was the, okay, so maybe I can see that in the slide what we have used, use params, yeah, so that's right. Okay, so without use params from React. Okay, so that's our hook, and then we take the value of the parameter. So we can say let id is useParams. Okay. And now so this one will write in this format so that we actually destructure and get the exact ID value. And since the ID is it's coming from the URL, right? So it's coming from the URL. Um, so this one will we need to convert this one to the integer format. Why? Because if you see the student DB, so this ID is integer format. Okay. So that's why we need to convert this one. So we write id equal to parse integer. Uh, ParseInt will convert this one to the integer format. Okay. Now we want to find that specific student. So let's create a variable student, which will be an object, right? So we'll say initially it's null, and then we'll say if the ID is there. So that means if there is the useParams get an ID, then what we will do, we will return the student, okay, from, so we need to import the database as well here as well. So we just we write this one so that we have our data source. So student DB is the data source, right? So we need to search student DB with a find method to see that whether the student is there. So let's say that if for any student, um, and then that student ID is match, so that means equal with our parameter ID. So if it is, then it basically return that student, right? So studentDB.finds, which will return an object to if this condition is valid. So what is the condition? Condition that, okay, a student where the ID matched with our parameter ID that is passing through the URL, then it's written. So if we find this student and then we just render it, right? So we'll say, let's say that if you write is 3 student details, okay, and then we'll check that whether this student is not null, right? So we use a ternary operator. So we say student, um, and then if the student is there, right? So basically this is the student object. So you can just write student field, but I don't want to do that because I don't know how many fields are there. So I want to iterate through all of them. So I will use object, since this is an object, dot entries method, okay, and then pass the student, okay, and we know that this will create a nested array or list. So we'll do the mapping to get that information. So it will give you key and value pair. So we destructured them as an array format. So you write key and value, key value, and then optionally we also take the index, okay, and okay, so let's give this one as the function, and then this is what we want. And then there should be the next expression. So this is what we did not define yet, what you want to return. Okay, so what do you want to render? And then this one we can say that uh, since this is basically fail condition, that the student is null, so that means there is no such student with the ID is in the URL. So we say no such student is found, no such student is found. Okay, Now, but here, if the student is matched, so what you want to, so you want to return the student information. Let's say that if you want to return the student information in a p tag, we can write is as a p tag. So you write p, and then inside the p tag, we want to return the key and the value of each of the student information. So we write uh, key, and then let's say that you give a colon, a space, and the value that you want to return. And then you also can give the key of this child, and this is basically the index. Okay, or yeah, so that's because the key is not unique here. um, so let's see that if the student details, so you are taking the parameters, and then you are finding for that student, and if you get that student, you show its information. Now if no such student is there, so you say no such student is found. Okay, let's see that. Okay, so it seems this is working now. So there was a typo where I import the use param from React, not from React Router DOM. So that's why it's giving me error. So I figured out it should be imported from React Router DOM. So that's the hook. Okay, and now it shows that if you click for a student, let's say that if I click for 187, and this is the student information is coming, and then if I go here, and then student information is coming, and then so that's fine. And then let's say that if I go for a student, um, ones, okay, let's say that if I give 10 and then no such student is found, so that means it's actually checking both the condition. As a successful student, the student with has ID which match with your database student, the local database, and then if not, then it shows the student is not found, right? So this is the introductory of the routes creations and navigation links creations. So if you see that what we have done, so we create two routes, and then we just give one link. um, I mean, obviously there will be some other links, right? So for example, if you want to search for a specific student, then we need to take the input for a search. Let's say that you search by name or search by ID. So those things you need to take from the user, right? And then if you want to update or delete, so those things we basically will explore when we have our database connected. And then we can use the fetch method to send the request from the React component. Okay. So I hope you got an idea that what the React router look like, how it works, and how you can create your own routes, how you can create navigation bar, and then how the components can render. Okay, and you see that. So what we have done, so we create a list of students, and each students have a link, and then that basically call a component, React component, and it's basically for all the students. It use the one React component, right? And then React component to use the useParams hook to extract the ID that you are sending, and then based on that, it's fetch from the local database information. Okay, so I hope you got it, and we'll see more on this kind of things in the next video. So see you, and thank you very much.